We move to Saturday now. Boston, Tampa Bay to get their series going. This is game one of this series, Eastern Conference semifinals. Boston, Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay minus 145, home favorite. The total 6 here, shaded to the under, about minus 115. The Saturday afternoon start time here. That's Boston Bruins. Outlast, I guess you could say, the Toronto Maple Leafs in a 7 really hard-fought games. Overcame a 4-3 deficit going into the third period to take care of business in Game 7. You got to be impressed with the fact that I don't know if it's. I know Tony Maserati on the Boston radio has made the comment that Tuukka Rask tried to lose this game. His teammates wouldn't let him in terms of Game 7. I don't know about that. I mean, obviously he didn't want to lose the game. It's just he didn't play his best there in that 7th game. That's all there is to it. But the Boston Bruins, we started to talk about how late in the season Bruce Cassidy's team had more and more forward depth, and boy, did that come to the forefront in Game 7 to beat Toronto. Danton Heinen scores. Jake DeBrusk, the rookie, with 2 huge goals in that 7th game. That's impressive, and that's the kind of depth up front that Boston has that, quite frankly, the New Jersey Devils didn't have, and I think that's going to pose some challenges here for the Tampa Bay Lightning in this series. I thought Boston a month ago, I said it a month and a half ago, if they meet up at some point with Tampa in the playoffs, they'll be live in that series, and I'm not backing away from that one bit. Will they win the series? Again, I think this is another close series in the end. Tampa Bay against New Jersey, they looked a lot more like October, November, December peak Tampa Bay. So did Vasilevsky. He was very good in that series. But is that a product of a bit of a team in New Jersey that relies on a top-heavy team, relies on Taylor Hall and maybe 1 or 2 more guys? Or is that a sign of Tampa Bay really getting their game ironed out after a really dismal March and April? They did not play good hockey, Tampa Bay, in March and April. Did they iron it out against New Jersey? I got to see the first couple of games at least in this series until I'm convinced of it. I actually did take a little bite with Boston plus 120 series price. Game 1, I'm probably going to stay away. I'm very trepidatious with the sides in game 1s of these series. You know, you're talking about Boston off a little bit more of a lesser turnaround Wednesday to Saturday. Tampa Bay off a longer layoff. So we'll see how these teams come out in game 1. Totals wise, it's sitting there at 6. Probably going to stay back from a total in this game as well. I did like the improvements Tampa Bay made defensively as that series went on against New Jersey. So to me, I'll watch game 1. Sit back, see how the teams play, see how the goalies look. Can Tuukka Rask get back in form? Because Game 6 was not pretty. Game 7 was even worse for him. He's got to step it back up again against this potent Tampa Bay offense. Can he do it? We know he's capable, but can he do it is the big question. So Game 1's an interesting one. It's probably going to be more of a sit back and observe one than having a bet side or total for me, at least, in Game 1. Let's start with Dana this time with the Boston-Tampa Bay Game 1 Saturday afternoon. Dana, Boston Bruins, do they have a chance in this series? Do you think Tampa Bay's turned it around and they're back on peak form? What do you see happening here?
No, guys. Hey, look. I've gone on record saying I think Boston wins this series, but I'm going to go with Tampa Bay in Game 1. And it is certainly hard to go against a team that's 36-15 at Amalie Arena, and that works out to be about a 70% winning, 700 winning percentage. So I just think there's an element in these game ones with these home teams where they just feed off of these crowds that may not be there in Game 2 for some of these arenas, but Tampa's more than capable, obviously, of beating anybody in the league. So it's not that far of a stretch. And if you're only asking me to lay $1.45 at home, I'd be more than happy to do that. And honestly, guys, Boston has lost 6 out of their last 7 games on the road, and I need to see a better performance when they go on the road than what I have seen, and especially in the Toronto series. And I need to see a better performance out of Rask. The other psychological factor to this is you may get a little bit of an exhale from the Boston Bruins. I mean, Tampa's been kind of mentally ramping up for this for a while, and Boston just got through with a tough series against Toronto, and they may get into this one and need a couple games to kind of fully become fully engaged as they were against Toronto. So I think this is a really good spot for Tampa, even though I think Boston ultimately will win this series. And so much has been made of Tampa Bay from an offensive perspective, and obviously, why not? They're the top offensive team in the league. Nothing has changed as the postseason has started, but they're pretty good defensively as well. And even though their numbers, you might look at their numbers and say, "Wow, that's kind of average. Well, when teams are high transition teams or a high scoring teams, usually their defensive numbers aren't nearly as good as their offensive numbers, just because they're a high transition team. And when you're a high transition team, that usually leads to opportunities going back the other way. But Tampa's done a pretty good job of limiting their opponents' chances, and they've been able to outscore any they've been able. I was going to use the old Dallas analogy where they outscored their mistakes, but it's really not a mistake. But they're just so strong offensively that they can give up 32, 33 shots a night and not have a problem. I'm not a huge fan of Vasilevsky. I almost sometimes put him in the same category of Rask, because there's sometimes where he looks like he could be a Vezina Trophy winner, and then there's other times where you just kind of wonder if the backups should get some, if Hudobin should get some minutes. But I think Boston's top line is in a discussion, certainly as being one of the best in the league, if not the best in the league. They have to have a huge series to win this series. But I think when you start going past that, you got. I think I'll take Tyler Johnson and Palat a lot sooner than I'll take the Brusque, and especially Krejci and Nash. I mean, I know name wise, it's you look at Nash and you say, well, I mean that should be pretty good, but it really just is not. And Krejci is so up and down. Krejci reminds me of when I was a kid and I was turning a dial on the AM radio trying to get baseball games from far away, and sometimes the game would come in and then sometimes it would go back out again. And that's kind of the way I look at David Krejci's game. I mean, for a second line center, you just have to get much more production out of them. So, or out of him. So, in this particular game, I'm taking a home team. I'm taking a team that has a dynamic offense, and I think that they ride that wave in game one. Whereas I think that the road team, as it goes on, gets stronger and stronger, and ultimately wins the series.
All right, so he likes Boston in the series, but Tampa Bay specifically in game one on Saturday afternoon. It's an interesting battle of blue lines. Whose blue line and whose blue line depth can step up? Because outside of Victor Hedman, I'm going to say it right now, and I don't care what people think. I'm not in love with the Lightning blue line. Girardi's an older guy. He's a step slow. McDonough, I'm not in love with McDonough as some people think, or some people are. McDonough was really good 2 years ago. He was not quite as good last year. I think he was wretched at points for the Rangers earlier this year. Strawman's still pretty good, but not quite what he was a year or two ago. I'm not big on Braden Coburn. He's just journeyman, and sometimes he's capable of being forechecked and coughing up the puck and making mistakes. And Sergachev's just a young guy. So there's some question marks there. But on the flip side, that Toronto speed gave Boston fits as that series went on. Lucky to survive it. So I'm going to need your Matt Grzelcyks of the world, your Adam McQuaids to really be good. I thought Kevin Miller played a very good game seven for Boston. Need more of that from him in this series as well. Krug had a terrible giveaway in one Toronto goal the other night. He's got to be solid. Big Z and McAvoy on the top pair are usually going to be pretty reliable for you. But again, it's whose blue line I think is going to step up and negate these two teams who've got good four-line depth. Going to be the key in this series. Let's get to Alex. Tampa Bay, Boston. Alex, what do you think?
It's gonna be a fun series to watch. I don't know if I'll be doing a whole lot of betting with the series, and if I do, it'll be mostly live wagering stuff with something I got really into in the first round. But the biggest thing, obviously, goaltending is gonna be huge in the series, like in any series. And Vasilevsky, like I said, I think having this rest and the fact that he played fairly well in the first round, because that was a key with Vasilevsky at the end of the year, was that he looked very tired. It was just the most minutes we've seen him play. So it'll be interesting to see how he responds right away against a team that, for his career, really he hasn't done well against. 1-4-1 and six starts against Boston. Where on the flip side, Tuukka Rask has done fairly well against this Tampa Bay team, and they've won 8 of the last 10 meetings. But Dana, as you mentioned about Boston, yeah, not looking good on the road at all, losing 6 of the last 7. And that's something that's key, because here with Tampa, their team, and they really don't have, like I said, the home ice edge is not really as big, at least in my numbers, it is where it is with other series. So, stealing that game, like we have, like saw with Pittsburgh, stealing that game one on the road is something that Boston would really want to try and do. But how much energy will they have coming off just 3 days? after wrapping up that, like I said, mentally and physically taxing series with Toronto. So like I said, I'll be watching this game, and I no real interest on the side of total here, but I think we see this one go at least 6 games, maybe 7, and I wouldn't be shocked if we see a lot of overtime games in here as well. So that's something, a prop I might be looking at, but yeah, not much of an edge really. I would give the slight edge to Tampa Bay and the Lightning. I think Vasilevsky will be able to steal more games than Rask here. But like I said, it's a Boston team that's loaded with talent, and like I said, game one will really determine the pace of how this whole series goes.
Yeah, some Rick Nash chatter in the chat going on right now. I'm done expecting anything big out of Rick Nash in a big spot in the postseason. That's all there is to it. I'm done expecting anything out of him other than stupid penalties and missing the net and with a shot close in. It's all I saw from him pretty much in the first round. Let's go to Andrew McGinnis here. Tampa Bay and Boston, Andrew. Is this a series you're really interested in betting wise, or are you like Alex, maybe going to just sit back and watch it more than bet it? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm looking at. I'm getting. It would be one of those. Sorry, but one of those series for me where I'll really have to look back at it and just kind of think to myself, how it's going to really shape up. But one thing that I saw Mike Babcock say is that he said that game sevens don't matter to teams unless you're the team that loses, and I think that's really important because in my personal opinion, I think that having said that, Boston came off game 7 and they might be a little bit tired or mentally drained. I think that's kind of irrelevant to a team that won and is feeling excited. I mean, if you're the Leafs coming off that, obviously they're eliminated now, but they're allowed to be pissed off. But this Bruins team has to flip the switch ASAP and get ready for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So I think in general they're coming off a high and they're feeling good coming into that, whereas Tampa Bay's had a decent amount of rest. So although they've had some time to strategize, they've had some time to get ready, I think it's almost in the Bruins' favor that they're fresh off a huge game, a huge win, huge third period comeback, and they're fired up and ready to keep playing hockey. I'm a big believer, guys, in rest being a bad thing a lot of the time. I don't think to a lot of degrees, especially in the playoffs, where if you're resting for too long, what can you really talk about? How much strategy and how much change can the coach really implement until you can just get out there and play some hockey? And I think that this Bruins team is not going to have too much time to think, and they're going to get out there and do their thing. But Ian had a little touch on, and you guys touched on the defensemen for both these two teams. And Ian, I have to agree with you. I think that that's Tampa Bay's biggest downfall is that throughout the regular season when I would catch their games, I would really see them. They're capable of scoring 6 or 7 goals per game, but they're also going to give up 3, 4, 5 goals per game as well, and that wouldn't really surprise me. So one thing it goes very underrated. Everyone always talks about how there's 3 lines ish for the Boston Bruins that can produce and score and kind of just light that lamp all of a sudden for you. I think it goes without saying that guys like Chara, McAvoy, Krug, Miller, even Adam McQuaid on any given night, they don't do anything too special, guys, but they do a great job of just getting that puck out of their own end and getting it up to those talented forwards. I mean, Boston Bruins are one of those teams that can really escape the defensive zone really fast and get that puck up the ice. All of a sudden, you've got Bergeron and Marchand on a 2-on-1 breakaway, and just like that. So I think that might cause a little bit of trouble for this Tampa Bay team. And I think the physicality aspect of this Bruins team will actually cause some trouble for this Tampa Bay team as well. They're more of a out in the pond hockey, shinny kind of style team. There's so much talent, so much speed on that team that is the Tampa Bay Lightning. But I think combined overall aspects, I think Tuukka Rask can step his game up. He can be that goaltender for this Bruins team. But overall, I think defensively and depth-wise, I'm still on the Bruins. I'm on the Bruins for this series. But guys, first, for my pick for this first game, it's going to have to be the over in the first period. We're getting minus 117 at Pinnacle, over 1.5, of course. And I think these two teams will come out firing. It will be an exciting first period start. Sometimes in a first game of a series, you think it might be kind of quiet. They might feel each other out. Might see what the other team's kind of bringing, what kind of systems they're running, what the other team's trying to do. But I think these two teams, there's going to be no hesitation. First goal is very important in this game, so I'm looking over in the first period, 1.5, minus 117.
Yeah, I think Boston and Tampa Bay both in the first period of their opening round went over in the first period in those two games. I think the Game 1, Boston-Toronto was a push for the full game total, but it did go over in the first period. Definitely, I remember it going over Tampa-New Jersey, the first period over in Game 1. So that's definitely that's not a bad look to go there. Over 1.5 first period with Boston-Tampa Bay. And like I said about the Tampa Bay blue line, there's 2 guys I would maybe take on my team. Definitely Hedman, but the problem is Hedman can't play all 60 minutes. It's just impossible. But he is phenomenal. He's outstanding. We know that. And Strawman's the 2 Swedes I'd take probably on my team. They're good defensemen, but there's a lot of question marks everywhere else on this Tampa Bay blue line, and it's going to be tested, I think, here by Boston. But similarly, though, Boston's depth blue liner is going to be tested by Tampa Bay, because Tampa Bay is another one of those teams. That's the theme of this second round. Teams that have 4 lines that can score, and Tampa Bay certainly has that. So that's going to be a test as well on the Boston side.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to our channel. Now, we've put a lot of work into producing all these free videos, so please help us out and keep all our content free for you forever by simply liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Now, not to mention, a visit to our industry-leading website will warm the hearts of all our SBR employees, especially myself. Now, the links are over there to the left, so do check those out. Thanks for watching.